Hi everybody, I'm Scott from Talk 19 Media, and I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I gave this presentation in March of 2019, working with the Small Business Development Center and Lord Fairfax Community College here in Northern Virginia. And we recorded a video of this mainly because we wanted to be able to share it for educational purposes. We do a lot of high quality video production work, but in this case our focus was really on being able to share this information with you. So along the way you might notice here that good lighting is really important. Yeah, like really important. So if you'd like to check out some of our higher quality video production work, we encourage you to visit our website at talk19media.com. In the meantime, we hope you find the information that we're sharing with you in this video valuable, and we'd be happy to help you out if you have any questions or anything. Just go ahead and reach out to us. Thanks so much. So today we're going to be talking about how to grow your business with video. And one of the first things we're going to do here is talk about what are some of the different ways a business can grow, and then what are some of the different types of videos that kind of support those specific efforts. So we're going to spend about 20 minutes or so on that. Once we've gone through that, the second thing we're going to do, that's the fun part and a little more interactive, and we'll get to kind of tinker with gadgets. We're going to take a look at how to make the best video for your specific situation. And we'll talk about what that means in a little while too. It's more than just budget. And the third thing that we're going to do then is talk about what are all the different ways you can get your video out in front of the audience that needs to see it. So like I said, a lot to cover. My goal is you aren't going to all leave here as video experts and have a mastery of everything and know it all. More so, my goal is get you thinking about a lot of things the right way, maybe introduce you to some tools you're not familiar with, and hopefully just sort of give you a good top to bottom picture of the whole process, so that you can really benefit and implement video as a tool that does in fact help your business grow. So the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about how can businesses grow and how can videos help. Most people immediately, when they hear business grow, the main thing they're thinking is more customers, more cash. But there are other ways a business can grow. I've got a few listed up here. Yes, the overall quantity of customers and transactions is good, but also new markets. Reaching into a new geography, an area you haven't been in before. Reaching a new demographic. Maybe folks that didn't realize they need your service or that you didn't realize needed your service until you made some little changes in your business model. Capacity. That's a little different than just the overall number of customers. If you have 10 people waiting in line at your counter, if you can get them through a lot faster, that's better for your business. That we didn't change the number of folks you serve, but if we can get them through faster, that's a way your business can grow. Expanded product and service lines. If you start offering something new or different, maybe you got a new employee in that has a skill set you didn't have, but it's still in your industry, well, hey, now we can offer this service too. Video can be a great way to share that and make people aware. And number of employees. As your business grows internally, things like training videos can really help tremendously on improving the overall flow and efficiency of onboarding new folks. I usually open the floor up here and say, what are some other ways you guys can think of? I'm gonna circumvent that real quick and just say, when we did the presentation in Winchester last week, somebody said, well, going from being a brick and mortar to being online or vice versa, making that change. And video can be an excellent way to tie those two things together as well. But what are some ways you guys can think of that a business can grow? If you can think of any that aren't already listed here, what are some other possibilities? Any thoughts?
Referrals.
Okay. And in a way, referrals leads to the greater number of customers and transactions, hopefully. But yeah, if you're kind of thinking inspire existing customers to share more, that's definitely a great way.
Hopefully social media.
Okay, so how does social media equal my business grew?
People see your business through social media,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes from that point to word of mouth.
Okay.
I tag this person.
Okay, good. So kind of, again, expanding that reach, expanding exposure. Excellent. So there are great ways video can address all of these types of growth. The three things that a video can do really effectively are, number one, educate. And that is the easiest thing to do with a video. Put information in there people didn't previously have. The second thing video can do a great job at is affecting someone. And what we mean by that is you need to make an impression. You want to have them get some sort of a feeling from that video that is, going to be either memorable to them or, in some way that they can connect with it. And the third thing that we want videos to do is to be compelling. Ideally, if we want our business to grow, we want this video to inspire some sort of action. You probably have all heard the little quote that I've got down at the bottom there. People want to do business with someone they know, like, and trust, right? The nice thing is, video kind of touches on all of those points. If you have a personal, appealing kind of video where the personality in your video really translates and comes through well, that's going to allow somebody to start to kind of trust you a bit more and to get to know you a bit more. If you give them something that affects them, then hopefully they're going to like you. And when it comes to the compelling piece, if you do a good enough job with those first two and you've built that trust and they know you and they like you, then hopefully that's going to incite them to take some action. So we're going to jump now from what videos can do to talk about a couple of different kinds of videos. So obviously, and you could ask 10 different marketing guys and they would categorize this 10 different ways. So I don't want you to think this is a definitive list. This is how my mind thinks of it. One type of video is, marketing, promotional, commercials, where, you're literally just like, hey, here's our product, here's our service, come buy it, right? Doesn't have to be a hard sell like that, though. Another thing is the training or the how-tos or the educational, where, something is being taught or some sort of information that's, maybe industry specific is being shared. Another type of video is like welcome or introduction or preparation videos. And you'll typically find those either at a company's website or in their office or their lobby. For example, who has been to Elite Shooting Sports in Manassas? 1, 2, all right, so wait, we got a few hands up. What was the first thing they had you do when you became a member? Watch a video. So instead of having to pay a person to be in that room for half an hour and teach you all about the facility, they actually have a dedicated space that can hold up to like 40 people. And as soon as new members come in, about every half hour, I think it is, they run the video and new members learn all about the facility, the rules, how it all works, where you go, what you do, who you talk to. All that gets covered right when you get there. And that's taking work time off of somebody else. Testimonials, we're all familiar with those. A lot of times your best marketing people are your own customers. So testimonial videos are a great way to put them to work for you. And the last one here is informational, documentary, or presentations. In parentheses, I have in and of. And what I mean by that is with presentations, right now we're making a video of this presentation. But I could very well have also incorporated video in my presentation. So think of it both ways. If we had more time, I was going to put a whole bunch of video in the presentation, but we learned a week and a half ago, I need more time. So those are, kind of a simple categorization. Those could definitely be subdivided further, but those are really kind of the 5 areas of video that I'm going to be focusing on. And what we want to do is sort of connect the dots with the 3 different things that we just talked about. I know that's kind of small up here, but one of the things we talked about was growing capacity. So if we're trying to grow capacity, how much education do we need to do? How much do we need to affect people? And how much do we need to compel people? The capacity piece is, can we get more people through in the same amount of time? So I just used that example of Elite Shooting Sports. I think we'll see a trend towards that more and more, that when you walk into a facility and it's your first time there, they're going to have a video ready for you because that frees up the time of the people actually working, which improves capacity. If we're looking to increase the quantity of customers and the number of transactions, once again, how much education do we need to do? How much affectation do we need to do? And how much compelling do we need to do? This is an area where being compelling is really important. If you're trying to get new customers, get people to know you, like you, and trust you, you've got to be compelling. So, of course, for growing customers' transactions, we're really thinking about those commercial, marketing, promotional types of videos. In terms of what kind of content is in that, we're going to get to that a little bit later. But the idea here, like I said, is you want to connect those dots. Think about, what is my goal? What are the tools at my disposal? And what are the different kinds of videos that best implement those tools so that I can achieve that result? Unfortunately, there's not some sort of magic mathematical algorithm here where you just kind of say, I want this many customers in this much time, my business is this, cool, okay, there's my script. There's a lot of kind of case by case that has to be done here to determine the best scenario. But again, my goal here is give you that overview, that kind of big picture look so that you can then start connecting those dots ideally for your situation. Okay, so now we're gonna move into that area of, so how do we make the best video for your unique situation? And there are a lot of considerations here. So with these considerations, as we just talked about, one big consideration is what is your specific goal? What criteria am I using to determine if this video was a success? And what is it I'm trying to achieve? What am I trying to do? A second consideration is budget. A company that has a lot of money to spend on a video or on a lot of videos needs to make different choices and decisions than a company that doesn't have much of a budget. They might have to do a lot more things themselves. Resources. Here, when it comes to video, some of the more critical resources are going to be things like a space to do a video in, some equipment to do a video with, people that are willing to get on camera and kind of become a spokesperson for the company. There are a number of other things too, but you just want to think about it as we move through this section of the presentation. We want to be thinking about, what assets do I have that can help me end up with a better video? I just touched on the spokesperson presenter piece. I put that separately here because there's also that side of, well, we don't have anybody in the company who wants to be on camera. Maybe we should hire somebody. So that's a consideration. Do we need to hire someone to be our spokesperson or presenter? Once the video is made, some other things that you have to kind of think about here are what's going to be my delivery method? How am I going to get this video in front of people? How important is the quality? My iPhone makes great videos. Have you seen them on a screen bigger than your phone? It may or may not make great videos. Shelf life. That might sound a little weird with a video, but what we mean by that is how important is it for your video to sort of be timeless, that the information you're sharing, needs to last for the next 10 years? Or are you going to be doing a series of videos where each one is kind of specific to something that's happening in that moment? I know one of our local businesses, Meridian Financial, Nathan does a really great job of, I think it's quarterly, he's doing kind of a video sort of state of the industry about the financial sector. So it makes sense that he's got that kind of on a regular schedule because that thing, we all know how that goes. So that's a place where he kind of took shelf life into consideration and is kind of scheduling the videos based on that. And then challenges. And of course, challenges can kind of relate to an absence of any of the other 7 points. But another side of this could even be more like technical challenges. What if the industry you're in deals with microscopics? We've developed this great new technology for splitting a cell. Anybody got the video equipment to record that? That's a challenge. So you want to look for what are the things that might be a challenge to you. Now, in terms of styles of production, again, this is just sort of how my mind works. This isn't an industry standard, and again, you could ask folks and get kind of a different separation of these things. But the kind of the 3 sort of tiers or types of videos, as I see them, there's the really simple, raw, freehand, live kind of things that especially were super popular on social media right now. You literally you hit Facebook, hit live, hit a record button, and you're making a video. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. So definitely simple, but it's going to be very raw. Because it's freehand, some people make the investment in getting a stabilizer or a stand or something to mount it on, and that'll clean it up a little bit. But by freehand, we mean, stuff's floating around and moving, and if you're not careful with that, you can make your viewers nauseous. We've probably all seen a couple of those videos. And then, the idea of it being live. Something like that, if you just go live on Facebook, you can't go back and edit it. You can't go back and fix it. So while that is definitely the simplest approach, it's not necessarily the most robust approach. So if we look at something that's more produced, you're going to be looking at something that instead of just being live and off the cuff most of the time is going to be more scripted. You might start seeing things that are more multi-camera. You get a couple of different angles or a couple of different locations. You might start getting the text overlays and be able to see things on the screen. I could have fun right now like this. And now in the video later, I'll add something there. And you can also do more with effects, and I use the term CGI there, which is computer-generated images. A lot of people hear that and immediately think Pixar. That's not necessarily what it always means. A computer can generate a lot of types of images, and that can include, logo animations, or special types of effects for transitions on the screen and so forth. And then the final thing that I separated out here is also the idea of doing animated or entirely graphics-based videos. We've probably all at one point or another seen a video where somebody took a slideshow like this and just talked over it, and all you ever saw was the slides. You actually never saw a person on camera. That's one example of a graphics-based video. Another type, though, is, and it's pretty trendy also in internet and email marketing, are these videos where it's a very simple, almost like a cartoon, but you can tell it was computer generated, where there's a little character and they'll follow it through a number of sequences, but it's not a full-blown animation where somebody spent a ton of time cartooning. Another example here is the whiteboard videos. You guys have probably seen those too, where you see a hand drawing real fast and the images kind of tell the story that or support the story that the voiceover is telling. So something to consider with those are a great workaround if you don't have anybody that wants to be on camera. That approach, any of those approaches, doesn't involve having a talent or a spokesperson. You'll still typically want a voiceover, but that a lot more people are comfortable talking on a mic than getting in front of a camera. All right, so who knows the good, fast, cheap rule? There's 3 things everybody wants. Good, fast, and cheap. You only get 2. If it's good and it's fast, it's not going to be cheap. If it's good and it's cheap, it's not going to be fast. And if it's fast and it's cheap, it's not going to be good. All right, you only get 2. All right, so where I'm going with this is, can we break the good, fast, and cheap rule with video? And in my opinion, in some cases, yes, you actually can. What we're looking at here is, based on some of those considerations, budget, resources, quality, and delivery method, I kind of put it across here the idea of doing it yourself, what that takes, versus hiring a professional and what that takes. So if you're going to do it yourself, obviously you don't need as much of a budget. At the same time, to do it yourself, you're going to need a lot more resources. Because you're doing it yourself and you're probably doing it with less budget and kind of minimal resources, that means the quality is going to be harder to achieve. And that means that your delivery methods are going to be more limited. And again, delivery methods we're going to talk about kind of in the 3rd section of the presentation. Now, on the other end of that, of course, you're going to get the opposites. If you're going to hire a pro, you're going to need a higher budget. They're going to bring a lot of the resources, so you're not going to need quite as much. Because they're pros, hopefully, you're going to have a much easier time achieving great quality, and that means you're going to be less limited in where you can put that video out there and have it look great. So when it comes to, can you break the good, fast, cheap rule? There are some ways. If you happen to be, very talented and have some really good resources in-house, you can do videos yourself pretty inexpensively that are going to be pretty powerful and impactful and help you grow your business. Another thing here is I skipped this middle column, prefab and templates. A lot of people don't know this, but there are a number of companies, mostly based online, that have sort of prefab industrial videos where you can buy what they've assembled, drop in either some of your own pictures, drop in your own logo. If you have some video, drop in some snippets of your own video, but it does all the fancy, cool, neat, pretty stuff for you. And ideally, you would also, drop in a voiceover over it. But the fact that it's going to come with, all these things that look like you paid a professional to put together a really nice video for you, it can be a really affordable way to do something yourself that still looks professional. So those are a couple of scenarios where you might actually be able to do something good, fast, and cheap. Obviously, the first time or two, if you did a prefab sort of video, there's going to be a learning curve, so the fast might not happen immediately, but once you've done a couple of them, it can become sort of a process that you can move through pretty effortlessly. So when it comes to making the right video and a good video for what you're trying to accomplish, I've sort of laid out here on a full-fledged, nicely produced video, what is the top to bottom process? Now, of course, if we think about those three types of production, and the first one was, simple, live, and raw, you're probably going to skip most of these steps. But in a well-planned, well-produced video, in order, kind of what you start off thinking about is, the script or the concept. Script, if you're going to have somebody doing a presentation or, reading off of a teleprompter or doing a voiceover. But not, if you are going to kind of wing something, you at least need to know what your concept is. What are we trying to say? What are we trying to get across? From there, you want to consider assets and logistics. This kind of goes back to those resources we talked about. But with logistics, something really important that a lot of people overlook is the recording environment itself. Having enough room to set some things up. Having a room that maybe doesn't echo so much. Having the talent, the people that you want to have representing the company in the video. Third, you want to start thinking about is the performance. Okay, so we've got the person, we know what they're going to talk about or what they're going to read. Now, get them to practice. If you're hiring a pro, then they'll practice on their own time before they show up, assuming you give them the script ahead of time. But if you're doing it yourself, one of the best ways to get comfortable and get good at it is do it over and over. Once you've done a lot of practicing, then get into your recording. And I put in parentheses there, lots of takes, all right? Especially early on. Once you've done a few videos and you kind of start getting used to it, it gets easier to get it right in a couple of takes. The first few times you do it, though, it's going to be tough. How many people saw the little Facebook video that I put out a couple of weeks ago when we were trying to do the original day? Anybody see it? Okay, a few hands went up. That was my 9th take. I did a Facebook video. I just literally recorded it in Facebook. I didn't go live because I knew I was going to need to do it a couple of times. I didn't script it, and I was like walking around a bunch of equipment in my office. But it took me like 9 takes to get to where, okay, I said everything I wanted to say. I didn't trip over anything. It looks okay. So it's totally all right to take the time to practice something and then do a bunch of versions of it until you get the right one. Now, if you're in a more produced setting, then editing becomes a thing. In this case, I've got 3 cameras recording this presentation. It's going to take us some time to lay those all in, choose the best shot at any given time. In addition to that, we're going to take all these slides and have them pop up on the screen as well for the people that watch the video. So all of that's editing time. You don't have to do editing with a Facebook Live video, but pretty much anything you do with any degree of production is going to take some editing time. From there, something that the professionals do that not all do-it-yourselfers know about or are comfortable doing or have tools to do is processing, meaning there are a lot of things we can do to enhance the audio and a lot of things we can do to enhance the video. With audio, we can do a lot of things where, for example, we even out the volume. We re-EQ what the microphone picked up to make it as clear as possible on all kinds of speakers. If there's background noise, we might be able to edit some of that out. With video, we can do things like make color corrections, try to offset bad lighting situations. This kind of a presentation is always a tough thing because you need the room dark enough to see the slides, but you need the subject lit enough for the camera to pick them up and have some degree of quality. So those are things that can be addressed a little bit further, as we say, in post. Post-recording, we can do a bunch of editing and processing before the final product goes out. Once you've done all that editing and processing and fixing and cleaning up, then you actually have to render a new video, make it just one single file again with images and sound. And then the final thing is delivering it, getting it out there to where it's got to go and who it's got to go. So having talked a little bit about some of those tools for kind of bridging the gap between do-it-yourself and hiring a pro, I've listed a few different resources here. There's a company called Envato that has a ton of different types of resources that they sell pretty affordably. So Video Hive is where you'll find a lot of those templates I was talking about for, if you're a realtor, they've got like animated realty things where you can just plug in your voiceover, plug in a couple of pictures of houses you've sold, drop your logo in at the end or your photo at the end, and it looks like a really nice video was made for you, but everything else was basically stock. Audio Jungle is a great place to get music and sound effects. And then Graphic River is kind of their stock graphic design things. So you can get just simple kind of cartoony or CGI types of images, not necessarily in a produced video format, but just little things you can kind of tinker and play with yourself. So all of those are under the Envato umbrella. I also mentioned the whiteboard animations earlier. Pretty much the most popular company I'm aware of for doing those is a company called YDraw. So you can work with them, kind of outline how long of a video you're working on and what your script is, and they'll quote you a price, and either you can get a whiteboard video done or choose not to. We've actually done some in-house whiteboard videos before too, and it's kind of fun, but it's very time consuming because you don't realize as that hand gets sped up for the video itself, the amount of time it takes to actually draw all of that stuff out and edit it so that the sequence happens the way it's supposed to. It's really time consuming. Yeah?
Can you share about, are those expensive? Are they relatively inexpensive?
I've never actually gotten price quotes from YDraw. Like I said, I know that they are the more popular company doing them. In terms of the ones that we've done in-house, they ended up being a little expensive only because of how much time it takes to draw it out. A video that was 6.5 minutes, the very first one of these that I ever did, the end video was 6.5 minutes. It took me 43 hours of drawing. Because it was a long story. So the companies that are doing it all the time can do it more efficiently than that, and I would like to think that might make their prices lower, but it might not because they are at the top of their game too.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And the final resource I've got listed here, I mentioned earlier working with a teleprompter. If you have a script for your video and you have a spokesperson, a teleprompter is a tool that allows the script to be displayed literally in front of the camera between the presenter and the camera. So they look like they're looking right into the camera, but they're actually reading the script. It takes a lot of getting used to use one of those, but there are some really affordable ones on the market, and they've even got some app-based ones. So folks who are recording using an iPad or an iPhone, you can have it set up where it's kind of in selfie mode for the video, but it's displaying a script on the screen. So you can do something app-based for that. You can also affordably buy a real teleprompter if you happen to be shooting with a DSLR or some sort of proper video camera. So where I'm going with all of this, though, is reading from a teleprompter is weird. We're not used to reading something where the words move for us. We're used to moving it at our pace, right? Scrolling the screen up and down or turning the page. So if you ever want to practice, this website, qprompter.com, is basically a practice teleprompter. You just copy and paste a script into it, hit play, and it'll do what a teleprompter does, and you can practice reading. All right, so now we're going to have a little bit of fun to get a little more interactive. We're going to talk a little bit about some tips and tricks for making the best video you can. I came up with this cute little acronym here, except I'm missing the letter K. But for producing a slick video, think SLIC, S-L-I-C, sound, lighting, image, and content. So with sound, we've got a saying in the industry, a video is only as good as it sounds. Now, this is becoming a little bit less critical with social media because I just saw the percentage the other day, and I want to say it's something like 77% of videos watched on Facebook are watched with the device muted. And you probably all are going, oh yeah, I almost never have the sound on when I'm watching a video on YouTube. I just take the visual. So the sound, that saying might go away in the years ahead. But when it comes to anything that's being delivered in other mediums, nobody wants to watch a video that sounds awful. So we're going to talk about some ways to get the best sound that you can. When it comes to lighting, good lighting makes everything visual easier. I came up with kind of an analogy for this. If you're a baker, lighting is like the best nonstick spray. If you bake really nice fancy cakes, but you can't get it out of the pan, right from the get-go, you're already kind of starting on the wrong foot. So the same idea happens here. If you record video with bad lighting, you've already got a lot of things working against you. And if you can get good lighting from the start, you can actually make great videos even with a cheap camera if the lighting's good. Image, details matter. We're going to talk about what I mean by that. And then with content, to me, the most important thing is just have a clear message. When somebody watches that video, make sure they understand what they were supposed to get out of it. If it's supposed to be funny, show it to a couple of people and make sure they laugh before you put it out in front of 10,000. it's important to be deliberate. Sometimes people think, oh, you know what, we need to make a video, hit record. And they just jump in and do something, and it may or may not serve them because they didn't really put that plan into, what are we trying to accomplish with this video. So for sound and audio, what I'd like to do here is actually turn these lights off and kind of light the room back up just a touch, because I'm going to show you guys a couple of things, and we're going to play with a few things. If you kind of look around now and look for where does it look bright, where does it look dark, the lighting in this room is really uneven. Right, we got some very dark spots, and overall, especially like when the sun is shining in from outside and our eyes try to compensate for that, this room is actually pretty dark. And as we said a minute ago, light is your best friend for recording a good video. Like here, now that I'm not kind of doing the spotlight thing to make the slides show up, you can even see if anybody's been watching that TV, I look a little clearer and better than when I was kind of spotlighted a minute ago. But sound. First thing we want to talk about a little bit is microphones. Microphones are going to work better and sound better when they are close to their source. So if you are recording with a device like a iPhone, iPad, some sort of tablet-y thing, or maybe you have like a decent camera and it's got a little microphone on it, but you end up positioning that 15 or 20 feet from what you're recording, the sound is not going to be very good. Ideally, you want microphones as close to their subject as possible. It's what we call proximity effect. There's a kind of a range of proximity to a microphone where that's where they test it, and all the spec sheets that come with the mic and all of the kind of markers they're trying to hit when they develop that mic, that's its sweet spot. That's where it's going to work the best. So a couple of the tools that people use for recording are going to be things like a wireless microphone. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've got this little guy clipped on my lapel here, but obviously I'm roaming around freely and not having any trouble. There's a little transmitter in my pocket, and there's a receiver in the back of the room that's tied into one of the cameras, so it's recording my audio from right here. In the video, and I'm hoping we'll send the video out to you guys too, so a couple of these things I'm kind of doing interactively you'll get to see after the fact. I'm going to try to do something where we switch out and only use the camera mic for a second. And you can hear the difference between having a close mic right up here and then what the ambient mic in the room sounds like. But anywhere that you can get the mic close to you is important. A second part of that is kind of environmental noise. You always want to try to isolate the source of your audio the best you can. So if there's a lot of other noise in the room, that's going to be harder. For example, if I'm not using this microphone, the projector's got a pretty loud fan. And the camera's probably hearing it not a whole lot quieter than it's hearing me. And I've got a pretty robust voice. But that's going to be in that audio. That projector's not between me and this mic. So if we ever hear that, you might hear it when I walk over close to it. Now I might pick some of that up. But when I'm just kind of back here giving my presentation, I've isolated my voice away from that environmental noise. So field microphones, we're in Fauquier, but not that kind of field. Field microphones basically mean microphones meant to be used out in the world, not in a studio environment. We approach things a lot differently when we're in a studio, but when you're out in the field, the most common types of microphones that people use are going to be lavaliers, which is what I've got here. It can also be called a lapel mic. A shotgun or a boom mic. You guys ever seen something kind of like that before? So the word boom typically refers to a long pole that lets you put something, somewhere that your body isn't. So this might be called a boom mic if it's on one of those long poles and being kind of held out over a camera somewhere. If you know how a shotgun works, kind of starts at a specific point but sort of spreads out as it gets further. So a shotgun microphone is designed to, sort of pick up whatever's in that direction of what it's pointed at. They do their best to try to get these to sound good and pick up from a distance well, but it's, in my kind of personal opinion, if you're not in a studio environment, it's really hard to use one of these effectively. Getting the mic close is usually going to be your best bet. I'm going to pass this around a little bit though, and I'll talk about it some, if anybody's never gotten to see or hold that kind of a microphone before. Obviously, handheld microphones, I didn't bring one with me today, but you always see newscasters, especially when they're out doing, reporting live from K Street in DC. They're going to be holding that microphone, and that allows them to control the proximity, allows them to easily interview someone else. Okay, let me ask you this. versus having to wire up more microphones and worry about some guy on the street that's there for a news report that they don't know if he's going to break their mic. A handheld can be a good tool for kind of that interviewing type scenario. So those are your most common field types. The ones that you can get closest to your subject with are going to be the ones that are going to yield the best sound quality. Now, I have a little note over to the side there for omnidirectional versus cardioid. And let me see. I was going to open this one up too. This is another one of my wireless kits, and I mentioned for the one I'm using right now, normally you have two parts here. There's going to be a wireless transmitter, and I can connect a microphone to this, and that just goes in my pocket. And then this is the receiver, which is what would connect to my recording device, in this case a camera, and that's how we wirelessly get the sound from wherever the subject is to wherever the camera is. Now on the microphone itself, this is kind of like the one that I'm wearing, and this one's tiny. Let me just reconnect this real quick. The idea with something like this, when it clips on and is pointing up, it can do one of two things. An omnidirectional microphone tries to pick up sound from all directions. So that can be pretty effective in a studio environment because, let's say you've got somebody who's turning their head a lot. When I'm talking this way, I'm more in line with this microphone. If I turn my head and talk that way, my voice just got quieter. She can probably verify that on the headphones, right? And that's one of those things we fix in post. But with an omnidirectional microphone, it'll pick up the sound from all directions, where something that's called cardioid picks up kind of more in a straight line of what's directly in front of that microphone. And the reason it's called cardioid, this microphone picks up from right here. And the back of the microphone basically doesn't pick anything up. It picks up a little bit from the side, but it picks up a lot from the front. So if I kind of do that symmetrically around the microphone, what shape am I making? It's like an upside down heart. A little drop down, a little bit from the side, a lot from the front, drop down, a little bit from the side, and then nothing from the back. So it's a cardioid because it's that upside down heart shape. I'm only saying upside down because this microphone happens to be pointing up. But with a shotgun microphone, that would be cardioid to the front. So the idea with something like that is that's going to help you in those situations where you've got a lot more environmental noise or maybe a lot more echo. Any sort of audio challenges, an omnidirectional is going to pick up everything, where a cardioid is going to be very specific to what you're pointing it at. I'm going to pass this one around too if folks want to kind of have a chance to look at what a lapel mic looks like and how those pin on. So if you take nothing else away from all that, I know I got a little technical and a little specific, but the big thing is try to have your mic close to your source. Yeah?
This is just a random question, but is there a difference between the big bulky microphones and the skinny ones?
There is, and if I have time at the end, I can give you more details on that. In a nutshell, a microphone is a backwards speaker. So if you think about it, the bigger the speaker, the better the bass response. So a big microphone usually has a nice big bass response, where a smaller microphone is going to be kind of more mid-rangey or trebly. That's the nutshell. All right, so lighting. This one, I wish it was just a little sunnier outside because I did a demonstration in Winchester that was really impactful to people. Most people, some way or another have heard or know, natural light is always the best. By natural light, we mean sunlight. I know I'm going out of order here a little bit, but I meant to change that on the slide. That is true, but there are limits to that. On a really bright sunny day with no clouds, a lot of cameras can't deal with that much light. It's too much. So the most perfect environment to record in is like an overcast day outside. You cannot get better lighting than that because there is light everywhere, but it's at just enough of a level that cameras can take it and process it and work with it really well. So that's usually what we're trying to recreate when we do lighting inside, unless you're going for really cinematic, dramatic effect lighting. That's usually what you're looking for is that kind of nice overall even balance of light. Without anything that's super bright and exposed, and without anything that's super dark and kind of hard to see. So I've got a couple of lights here I'm going to use to demonstrate a couple of things. But where I'm going with this, in the demonstration that we did the other day, Can I get anybody to be a volunteer for a minute? You don't have to do much. You just have to stand somewhere for me. Anybody? All right, great. Come on up. I'm hoping this will work. I'm going to have you guys watch this TV, but what I want you to do is stand by the window. Basically, I'm going to have you stand like right here. And what I want you to see is a lot of folks try to shoot video, like, they want to get a little bit of natural light in their shot, so they kind of shoot from with something behind them. Now, if it was just a little sunnier outside, it's doing it a little bit. You can kind of see what's happening here. But there's basically kind of this glow around behind him, and it's making him look actually quite dark, right? So if you want to take advantage of natural light, instead of putting your back to where the light's coming from, you want to use that on the front. So we're actually going to switch positions now. I want you to come stand right around here. Don't go too far, because I do want it to be catching the light from the door on you a bit. Actually, come stand just in front of the TV. We'll go super close up here. All right. Now come just a little further, because I don't think everybody can see the TV. And let me zoom. There we go. All right. But now, you see how much easier it is to see him and the details, because we're getting that natural light from the door on him. Notice I'm standing off to the side. I don't want to block the light with my back and with my equipment. But if I'm kind of at this angle, and it lost you here.
Too close.
There we go. Yes. But it makes a world of difference in the image, just having that nice natural light. Thank you. I know you didn't get to see that much for yourself, but we'll make sure you get the video. All right, let me just kind of set this back where we were.
And natural light makes a huge difference in colors, too.
Yes. So that brings us right up here. If we look at this first line, then the kind of the qualities that we need to look at with light and cameras and how they work together are temperature, which is also kind of like the color of a light, brightness, and white balance. So I already talked a little bit about brightness. When something is too bright, you'll get really harsh shadows, you'll get kind of an overexposed look, meaning anywhere that the light's brightest, the video can kind of wash out in white and it doesn't look good. So brightness, there's kind of levels that are safe and good for lighting. So sometimes people think, I'll go out to the hardware store and buy a really bright light and shoot video with that. That's not usually the best choice either. You want to kind of find that good sweet spot where it's bright enough that you don't have to do much to the camera for everything to look good, but not so bright that it's like, wow, spotlight, like how I looked when the room was darker. So with temperature, great point. And I'm sure most of you are probably going to be like, oh, what are those lights? I want to come get those. Because that's how, in Winchester, literally everybody came up and wrote down the model number of these, and I really should be selling these apparently. These lights are kind of unique because they allow you to do either warm light, which has more of kind of an orange or yellow tint to it. I don't know if you guys can see sort of my skin tone. Or they allow you to do cool light, which has a little bit more of a blue and white tint to it. And those can be used very intentionally to get different kinds of feels and looks to a video, but they can also be used to try to sort of combat whatever's happening in an environment you're working with. So, just, again, I can't go into tons of detail today because of time, but I just wanted you to kind of be aware. The room we were in Winchester, they had a big mix of incandescent lights and LED lights. And the LEDs were kind of more the cool colors, where it was that white blue, but the incandescents all had that harsh kind of yellow orange. So I actually did a thing where I walked around under the lights, and in the video on the screen, you could see me kind of go from, looking more natural skin tone to looking really pale, to natural skin tone to really pale, just by walking across the room. So getting some even lighting can make a big difference in the quality of the video. And the final thing here, white balance, that has to do with, based on the color that a light is casting, a camera can sort of auto set and adjust itself if it can see something white. White will reflect whatever color is too prominent from the lighting. So there are a number of ways you can set white balance. Most mobile devices are just going to do it automatically. It's going to look for something white in the picture and try to do its best to make that sort of accommodate the lighting in the room. With cameras, you usually have to do that manually or deliberately set it to an automatic mode. Right now, I've got these cameras set on automatic, but if I was to switch this to a manual white balance, So right here, it's in a mode where it's automatically setting based on what the room is showing us. But right here, it's set from something I was doing on a shoot a couple of weeks ago where I had to compensate for the room being too blue. And so you can see it's adding a much warmer tint to the image. You see the difference there? And that makes a big difference on skin tone. I was trying not to put people in it, but, but there we can see Mr. Hartman looks a little more pale and blue, where here he looks a little healthier and has some natural color to him. If you don't want me to use that in the video, I won't. Okay. All right. So there's my clicker. So as you saw with the window, the position of your subject to the light is pretty important. It makes a big difference. I'm just going to touch on these three kind of most common positions to give you a sense of sort of the difference between just a completely raw, natural, simple video versus something where production went into it and it lit a little better. A key light is your primary light. It's the one that's supposed to kind of give you the most exposure, light your image the most primarily. However, you usually don't have a key light coming straight on at somebody. For one thing, they're going to end up squinting because they're looking right into a light. For another thing, if they're reading off a teleprompter or if the camera's right there, it can create issues with glare and just make the job a lot harder. So typically your key light is kind of off at an angle, which is, I didn't catch your name, sir? Greg. So when we had Greg kind of switch positions with me in front of the door over there, he was turned at an angle to me, so the light's kind of coming from the side. He could very comfortably look at me. If that sun was a lot brighter, trying to look out the door would have, again, you're going to get that kind of squishy face from, I can't see. So key lights, your primary light, should come from a little bit of an angle. Now, depending on the environment you're in, doing that might give you a shadow on the side that's away from the key light. So it's not unusual to then use a fill light that's at a much lower level to kind of reduce the shadows on the opposite side. So it would kind of come in at an angle from the other direction. Again, you can also use it for a more dramatic effect. Like in movies, they'll do things a lot where, they'll split the face and one side's really well lit and nice, but the other side's really dark, and it kind of gives you that mysterious feel. So there's some fun stuff you can do with lighting too. But the idea here is just to get you thinking again about, when I set up and I'm going to make a video, how can I make sure I get the best image quality? The final thing is a backlight. That's usually the least important, but the idea behind a backlight is it just gives you a little bit of separation between your subject and the background. It's absolutely critical if you're doing green screen work. And I know a lot of people are kind of doing that from home now too, where you can buy a little like 6x6 green screen that you hang up behind your desk, and then you use your webcam and you can green screen it and you're all set. But it helps tremendously to get a little bit of backlight so that there's just a little bit of an outline of light around you. So when you go to remove that green screen and replace it with something else, you don't get that crossover. If anybody's tried doing green screen work, probably the first time or two you did it was awful, and like half your head disappears because the green bleeds into you because you didn't use a backlight. So that's how one of the things a backlight will do is give you that separation from the background so you can remove the background without removing yourself. So for image and picture, and this is the one where I have to be careful because I could spend 2 or 3 hours just on this. First thing, hopefully what you're kind of getting as a big takeaway here today so far is your image quality is not just about buying a $15,000 camera. Image quality is a combination of the equipment you're using and your environment. A $15,000 camera is going to do you no good in a dark room. So it's that matter of having enough space to position a camera well, having proper lighting so that your subject looks good. If you do all of that, you don't need a super expensive camera. And $15,000 actually isn't that bad. Some of the high-end, the movie, like independent film grade cinematic cameras, they start about $50,000 without lenses. And then you can easily spend $10,000, $15,000 for each lens that would go on it to shoot different types of, different depths of field and so forth. Anyway, getting off track. So just a couple of guidelines for framing your shots. So what we mean by framing your shots is just, kind of considering not just how does your subject look, but how do they look in context to what's around them. And a couple of things you're going to want to become familiar with. There's something that's called the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is this idea that if you were to kind of draw, divide your screen into thirds vertically and then thirds horizontally, you usually want your subject at one of those crosshairs. And there are several reasons for that. One is if you're doing any sort of overlay graphics, now you've got a great place down here to scroll your phone number, scroll your website. Or over here, great place to pop up your logo or pop up, hey, this week only. Some sort of on-screen graphic. It gives you room to do that. When you shoot stuff dead center, you don't really usually leave yourself room to put anything else in the video. Also, just stylistically, it looks nice. If the person's angled just slightly, then that space that it creates over here is also kind of what's referred to as leading space. So if I'm kind of looking off that direction, having a little bit of room out in front of me looks much more natural. Then I'm going to walk into the leading space. Don't move the camera. I can't see. Tell me when I'm kind of near the right edge. Okay, so like if I stand here and talk for a second, those of you watching the video are going to be able to see it looks really unnatural. Would you agree? Yes. All right. I know that was not the camera that's showing up on the TV. That's the camera for the video.
I was going to say, what are you talking about?
Sorry. Well, I can kind of demonstrate it here. I can demonstrate it there too. If I come over here, and so if I'm talking to you guys from here, doesn't it look really weird that I'm talking to something off camera and you have no idea what's over there? But if I don't change my angle, but just move back here, and now I'm talking to you like there's something over there, doesn't it feel a lot more natural now? Of course, I'm not quite in my thirds. The most natural thing would be if I was right about there. Now my head's at those crosshairs for what we would actually say upper thirds. It looks much more comfortable and natural because you get the feeling from that leading space that something's there. Depth of field describes the relationship between the background, the subject, and the camera. When you've got some space between those things, you can do some really nice things with focusing. He's very much in focus and in detail and looks really good. You can tell the fill light's coming in from his right. It's casting a little bit of a shadow. I'm sorry, the key light's coming in from his right, casting a little bit of a shadow, but they're doing a fill light to catch his cheek. But the point is, with depth of field, look at that background. Very out of focus, right? And it gives you this really nice feeling of, there's a nice color splash there and it's a nice texture, but it's not distracting. When your background is just as in focus as your foreground, a lot of times it kind of makes the person seem less the priority. So just food for thought, that idea of being able to have a little bit of room to affect how the background looks versus the subject in relationship to the camera. You can accomplish that look by more or less having the subject closer to the camera. Let's see if I can do this on the TV and get that background to start blurring out a little. All right, so I know it's probably hard to see and I'm in front of it for some of you. I'll move in a second. But you'll notice that over here, this light and this picture frame, all that's going out of focus even though my face is really crisp. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
And so I'll move a little so maybe the folks behind me can see it happen. But if I get over to about here, notice how far out of focus the background is now? It's because there's lots of room between me and the background. I'm a little closer to the camera. That's depth of field. With shot styles, there's lots of different types. Close-up is typically kind of shoulders up to top of head. A mid shot is usually kind of waist up to top of head. A quarter turn shot is where somebody's kind of looking off camera instead of straight into the camera. That can be a great way to work with somebody who's not comfortable being in front of a camera. For example, here, he's looking right into the camera. Looks more like a presenter or a spokesperson. But here, notice, nobody even thought of this the first time I brought it up probably, right? That he wasn't looking at you. Looks totally natural, right? He's very comfortable. He's not having to look into a camera. He's looking to an interviewer off camera. That's what we call a quarter turn. Instead of looking right at the camera, you quarter turn. Safe margins just refers to the fact that screen standards have changed a lot in the last 15, 20 years. We went from standard definition to 720 HD to 1080 HD. Now we're at 4K. All of that has impacted how wide the screen is versus how tall the screen is. And when you produce video content, depending on where it's going to be delivered, that has an impact. There are areas, how many of you have seen a TV commercial where like half the words are missing off the side of the screen? You've all seen it, right? It was produced for one format, but then used in another. and the screen didn't accommodate whatever that original format was. So safe margins is just this idea that there's kind of a zone you can use that whatever's in that zone will appear on any screen you play it on. Just a good thing to be aware of if you're doing anything that's going to go somewhere other than mobile devices. Orientation, you guys know what that is, portrait versus landscape. Something to consider there is a lot of the social media platforms that are completely app-driven are probably going to do better actually with a portrait orientation video. But if that video's got to go anywhere else, you end up with the whole thing of it only using about 1/3 of the screen down the center and then all this dead space on the sides. So shooting landscape versus portrait, that decision should be made based on where is this video going to end up. And content, let's bring this back around now. We talked about the importance of sound, the importance of lighting, the importance of image quality, gave you some tips and tricks for making those things the best you can. Content is the critical piece, and this is really the area where we're going to loop this back to, how do I use this to grow my business? We talked about different types of videos, and we talked about these 3 things that a video is going to do well. So when you're putting together the content for this video and your goal is, I want to grow my business in such and such a way, I have chosen to make this kind of video, and that's going to involve me doing this much education, this much affectation, and this much compelling. I just want to break these words down a little bit more as you're developing the content in your video, so that you don't kind of limit what you can do based on what your initial concept of those words might mean. I'm realizing that it actually might be nice to switch back to the lights off for the rest of the slides. Can you maybe hit that? Oh, thanks, Jenny. And I'm going to bring this back up just so I don't kind of turn dark in the video. Wrong way. Oh, I changed their levels. All right, I'm going to guess. Okay. So when we talk about educating, it doesn't literally have to be teaching, but it can be. The idea here is that you want to make people aware, or you can just sort of inform them of something. Those can be different things. You can teach, and you can also do demonstration videos. All of those are different ways to educate somebody that watches your video. And depending on what industry you're in, you might find that one or the other is a more natural fit. And as my friend Sherry Goodwin likes to say, it doesn't have to be an or, it can be an and. Educating them can mean making them aware and teaching them, and you can demonstrate something. When it comes to affecting people, there are a bunch of different ways to do this. And these, again, not conclusive lists. This is just stuff to get you thinking and give you sort of some goals to shoot for. Things that affect people in a video is something that makes them laugh, or something that makes them tear up. Something that makes them think. Something that they will remember, maybe something they've never seen before. It's like, oh wow, that's really cool. Remember that thing. Laughing and crying is great, but there are lots of other feelings you can try to affect people with in a video as well. And then also that idea of making them, want or need something. That really goes in the marketing direction specifically. But if your content is developed the right way, that process of making them aware and kind of demonstrating something can work a long way toward making them realize, oh, I want that or I need that. And then your next step is, how do you compel them to now take that next step? What do you want them to do? So it's good to be clear and identify what you want them to do. If you want them to call or contact you, say so. If you want them to go to your website, say so. Put the URL in the video and put it in text around the video. If you want them to actually just come into your location, say, oh, here's our hours, come on down and see us. Talk to so-and-so when you get here. And then, of course, on the social media side, going back to Dave's point earlier, one way to grow is get people talking about you. You can, in a video, it's okay to say, hey, make sure you share this with your friends. So if you can do those things with your content and you have that clear goal and you put together a nice quality video, you should be able to start achieving some of those goals. So the last thing we're going to talk about here is delivery methods and kind of, what are they best used for? Obviously, one of the most popular delivery methods for video right now is online. You may or may not have thought of or used all of these different opportunities. Obviously, there are dedicated video platforms like YouTube and Vimeo. For anybody that's not familiar with Vimeo, it's very similar to YouTube, except not owned by Google. And they kind of brand themselves as a more professional video offering. Their for-fee service sort of gives you some better perks and so forth than things that you might get with YouTube. But both are very effective for getting videos out there. One of the most ideal things with having your videos available on YouTube or Vimeo, particularly YouTube because it's owned by Google, is YouTube is really, a lot of people think of it now as a search engine. I know I certainly do. When my ice maker stopped working last summer, I went to YouTube, how do I fix the ice maker on a GE, whatever my model number is. Boom, 12 videos that show me how to do it so I don't have to hire a plumber. Took me 15 minutes and a $9 part. I can guarantee you the plumber would have charged a whole lot more. So the fact that I was able to search that and find it, while that was probably a bad example because that didn't lead to more business for the person that made the YouTube video. But from a business perspective, if you have something you offer that people look for, the fact that they can search and find your company by finding a video related to that thing they're looking for can be really, really helpful. You might, I'll use Mr. Hartman as an example here. Let's say somebody has a scratch in their wedding band or something that, they're kind of not sure, what can be done about this? And they, do a search because they're thinking they're going to be able to fix that themselves. Maybe if I buff it out with some vegetable oil, you don't know. Or the whole thing of people that, people get rings stuck on their fingers all the time. And if you have solutions for that, that may not necessarily be something that immediately leads to business, but that exposure, that fact that, here's a video, if you ever get your ring stuck on your finger and you need, some ways to get that off, here's a little demonstration of what we do in the shop. And it gives you a chance to get in front of people. It gives you a chance to kind of have them get to know you a little bit, your demeanor. You might even have a little bit of your shop in the video so they can see that it's a nice place. And it plants that seed. It's one more kind of level of exposure that something like that, I'm going into too much detail again. But the idea is, regardless of what kind of video it is, being searchable is good for your business. The other thing that's really great with YouTube and Vimeo both is that when you put a video there, they generate embed codes that you can use anywhere. And that becomes important for several reasons. Most specifically, when you've got video on a website, high quality video files are huge. So to actually have that video living on your website server such that anytime somebody goes to watch it, your server is doing all the work of loading that video, compressing it to a streaming format, sending it to their screen, you're bogging down your web server. It's going to make your website slower, and if you get 10, 15 people watching that video at the same time, it can even crash your site. But if you take a video from something like YouTube and embed that in your site, their server is doing all the work. It's not doing anything on yours. Well, all it has to do is call it. It calls YouTube and says, hey, play that video, and they do. So that's a whole lot less work on your server. The other thing that's nice is just that convenience that you can upload your video once and then take that embed code and say, all right, we need that on this page of the website. I want to put it on my Facebook profile and post it out there. I'm also going to include it in my next email that goes out. All of those things, you just drop in the embed code and you're done. There's not all this uploading, waiting, writing another description, linking, none of that. You just drop in the code. So very efficient. With social media, you can upload videos directly to those platforms, of course, especially with Facebook. We've already talked about the live videos a little bit. You can also have, if you have a business page, you can have a video that is kind of the foundational video of your business page, that right when somebody lands on the business page on Facebook, there's a button, play video. And so that can be a great place for one of those introduction or welcome videos. Just give people a chance to get to know you when they land on your Facebook page. So there is a difference there between uploading that video to your social media profile versus just posting it. The thing that's nice with uploading it to your profile is it's always there. So anybody new or old that comes back there, they can always watch that video. When you post something, 2 weeks later, nobody's going to see it because it's already 100 posts down in your feed. So that's something to give thought to. Something that is a short term, if you're doing a quick video for, hey, this weekend only, we're taking 10% off of all of these products. That's great to do as a post because after a couple of weeks, nobody's going to care. It doesn't apply anymore. Obviously, having video on websites can be really, really effective in a bunch of different ways. The introductory video I love a lot when I see a website that, sometimes I don't want to jump through 9 different pages to try to get 7 or 8 different questions answered. If I can watch a 3-minute video on the homepage and understand, it goes back to that question. Do I like this business? Do I feel like I'm getting to know this business? And can I trust this business? If I can get all of that in a video in 3 minutes on the homepage, I'm good with that. Saves me a ton of time. But other things you can do here, for example, with our company, we do a lot of website development and have a lot of clients that want to be able to do kind of their own ongoing content maintenance from that point forward. I've got a ton of tutorial videos behind a password on our website, and for all of our clients, I just give them that password. Anytime they email me and say, hey, I forget, how do I do this? Link, there you go. Here's the video that shows you how to do that. Saves me a ton of time versus, okay, let's get on the phone and okay, now go to this screen and go to there and click this button. I don't do that anymore. Doing videos, tutorials for the services we offer has made a world of difference in our efficiency. So I make that available through the website. Email, of course, that's mainly a good marketing thing, being able to drop videos into your email. And then online storage, a place where I use this a lot is specifically Dropbox. I've got one of the paid professional Dropbox accounts. It's $10 a month, but it allows me to do things like schedule availability of a video. So, for example, there's a nonprofit organization that I do video for that they sell as a fundraiser, but to keep people from just distributing the download and sharing it out to everybody they want, I actually only make it available for a certain window of time for them to download from that link, and then that link expires. So I don't have to think about it, I don't have to remember, okay, so 2 days from now I need to turn that link off because that person had it. I don't have to do that. I just, as soon as I create the link, I just say expire in 48 hours. And then I send the link to the person and I'm done. I never have to think about it again. So there are some different tools and good ways to use all of these online platforms to make your business more efficient and to get video to your customers in the most ideal way. Physical media. Obviously, most people, when they think of video, they think of either DVDs or Blu-ray discs, but also USB drives. We've had a number of folks do kind of a marketing campaign where they get a little branded USB drive and put a video on there either that is helpful to their client or that is required for a potential client to watch before they become a client. There are a lot of different ways you can do it, but that can be a cool little marketing tool. Some of you that come to the Ignite Fauquier sessions, a couple of years ago, we had a gentleman who has created a type of jewelry that is basically a decoration for a tie. It can be gold-plated or a number of different things, and it kind of attaches in a weird way, but once it's on there, it's like jewelry for your tie, and it actually is really cool. But people were calling and emailing him all the time, how do I put it on? I don't get it. So we ended up doing a video for him that is a tutorial for how to put it on. And he puts it on a little branded thumb drive and sticks it in every jewelry box when somebody buys one. Also on that thumb drive, a little HTML link file that takes people right to his website. So great little way to implement that and kind of grow the business. And now he's not having to pick up the phone all the time like, okay, so first you wrap this around here. It's that time saver again. DVDs and Blu-rays can be great too. We've got a medical office in Fairfax we work with that they have a 1-hour seminar they require all new patients to watch before they become a patient because they're very specific about it being a partnership in health. A doctor can't fix you. A doctor can give you the tools, you got to fix yourself kind of thing. And so we recorded that presentation, and now anytime they get new patients, when they're between their first consult and their first appointment, they get that video to be able to go home and watch, and then they don't have to keep scheduling these classes in office. They just make them take a little test afterward to make sure they watched it. So on-site or kind of internal use videos, this is kind of goes back to the idea of what I talked about with the shooting range in Manassas. With on-site or internal videos, I would say it kind of goes back to like the shooting range video where they right on the facility have a video you can watch when you become a member there. I talked about the doctor's offices that have a lobby video. Some other things that actually the doctor in Fairfax I was just talking about, they're now going to a tablet version of it instead of giving out the DVDs because the DVDs get expensive when you have to order another 1,000 or 2,000 every year. So they're actually going to go to a tablet version where they can actually just, if somebody wants to, they can sit in the lobby and watch the video in the waiting room with a set of headphones and then take the little test on the tablet at the end, and then they're kind of ready to become a patient. Last time I bought a car, I was told this story in Winchester. It used to be previously when I bought a car, whoever my salesperson was, once we got it kind of where it was starting to get in writing, they would take the time, you'd go sit in the car together, be like, okay, so this button does this, and here's how you set that, and here's how you connect Bluetooth. Last time I bought a car, they handed me a tablet and said, I'll be back in 30 minutes. And the tablet was a video that walked me through all the features and functions and all the stuff I can do with my car. So again, they're looking at that efficiency and capacity aspect and saying, instead of taking up employee time to do that stuff, the most repetitive things you do in your business are the best things to put into a video because it's going to save you so much time. And then the kind of final platforms here, of course, would be getting videos out on television or even cinema. A lot of people don't think about that, but in the movie theaters, most of them sell pre-film advertising. And it's a lot of times not nearly as expensive as most people assume it is. But if you're going to put something up on a screen that big, you shouldn't probably shoot it on your iPhone. So food for thought there. But going back to the TV thing, we work with a lot of companies that do network affiliate advertising, which means they start off working with the cable advertising, but included in their package, they get a certain amount of time on the local affiliate for, let's say, NBC or CBS or one of the well-known networks. Because it's kind of done as an affiliate, you're not going to get a national commercial out of that. You're not going to have your commercial showing up in San Francisco. But they'll throw in a certain number of prime time, right on that channel type of advertisements as an adjunct to your cable stuff and to your online stuff. So I've many, many times seen TV commercials we've done while I'm watching a show I normally watch casually on TV. I'm not saying that part's inexpensive. TV advertising can be pretty pricey depending on the package you put together. But that is another means of getting your video out in front of the people that need to see it. So, hopefully I've given you all a lot to think about, some tools, some tips, some tricks. Maybe we can go ahead and put the lights on one last time here. Happy to take some questions. As I said earlier, there's not just some sort of magic formula where what you were walking out of here with today was a 100%, this is how you're going to grow your business. My idea was to give you tools so you can now think about, okay, I think this kind of video would work really well to accomplish this goal, and if I do that, this is how my business can grow. So I hope I've succeeded in doing that. I thank you all for your time, and like I said, I'm happy to take some questions, or if anybody wants to come take a look at any more of the equipment. Hopefully I'm going to get those 2 microphones back. But anybody have any questions or anything that you want to discuss or anything you were expecting today that you didn't get? Oh, thank you.
This is so awesome! Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's just amazing.
Whew, that's one talks 19 to 2000.